from PRX.
Friends beyond binary, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time for a classic episode of Sleep With Me, protector of Oakland's Stonefruit. We've done this as a live show. This episode, it's a personal essay episode about a job I had, helping find keep the Stonefruit of Oakland safe, driving around. So it does have mentions of BUGSs and probably some HE double hockey sticks. It's an older episode, a little looser, a few more flubs. Early days of the podcast, 341. I don't even know, I think we're on like 1341 right now, so I can't believe that, really. But a good look back at the show, and it gives you an extra episode of 2025 to help keep you company, because that's what I'm really here to do, take your mind off something, keep you company in the deep dark night. So thanks so much for listening. Sleep With Me podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are the things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations. Hey, everybody, this is Scoots, where I encourage the people who already get a lot of value out of Sleep With Me, who listen to 2 or more episodes a week, or 2. If you listen all night, definitely pay attention right now. Or if you listen to like 3, 4, 5, 6 episodes of Sleep With Me a week, I'd love to have you support the show back so we can be here for you. But I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to try to convince you. I'm just trying to get this message through. If you already say, yeah, I know, I just keep forgetting. This is just one more reminder of how powerful your actions are when you support the show, and just giving you somebody else to identify with who did it. They were just like you. Yeah, I know I get value out of the show, but I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do it the next day, because I've been there too. And this comes from Nora. I was listening to Sleep With Me multiple times a week, more often than other stress relief subscriptions I actually paid for. So I decided I should start paying for this podcast. I wanted to support a podcast that was so important to me. And I really like the ad-free content and the extra Ray content. So thanks, Nora. So if you're getting more value out of Sleep With Me than stuff you already pay for, it makes your life better. And that's what I'm here to do. Keep you company, take your mind off stuff so you can fall asleep so your life can be better. And I do that. We're able to do it. The whole team of people that work on the show is able to do that because of people like Nora. So if you identify with what Nora said, you said, yeah, no, Nora did it. Now I'm going to do it tonight. Go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. That's sleepwithmepodcast.com/PLUS. Sign up now and you say, oh boy, now you can go to sleep. I did what Nora did. So thanks everybody. Oh, Mystery Bart, a lot of people help out on this show. Who are they?
Chris Posty Poster Son sounds like an earful. Wrote the theme song. Edits episodes too. Carl W. the Legend. Also edits episodes. Ashley, Kenny, Scotty, Jennifer. Runner. Eric and the team at Astound are on the website. I am the Mystery Bart. I do the lullabies, yeah. I do commissions at JonathanMann.net. I'll write a song for you. Any reason at all. You can tell me the story and I'll make it personal. You see the kindness shine straight on through when the listeners form their own Facebook group. Keith, Stacy, Sarah, Julie, and Jennifer. These are your narrators. Get support dear Scooter on Patreon. Buy the merch and support the sponsors. You can find anything you want at sleepwithmepodcast.com. And we're so proud that we could dance. Rusty Biscuit, Lois, Anna like banana. Leah does the transcripts.
Thanks, Mystery Bart. Oh, Mystery Bart, by the way, did you know if you sign up for Sleep Phones, we're giving you some access to Sleep With Me Plus? So if you go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleepphones, not only the most comfortable way to listen to Sleep With Me, you can get those Sleep With Me branded sleep phones. You could use the code Sleep With Me to save $5 off your order. And then when you get your sleep phones, you just send a message to Scooter through the contact form on our website, and you'll get access to Sleep With Me Plus. So get those sleep phones, sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleepphones, and then send us a message. Thanks, everybody.
hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble falling asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that's here to put you to sleep. We do it a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights and press play. I'm going to do the rest. And what I'm going to do is create a safe place where you can set aside whatever's been keeping you up, whether it's your body, your mind, or your feelings, whether you're thinking or hurting, or you're even excited. I'm going to try to distract you from that. And I'm going to send my voice here across the deep, dark night. And I'm just going to tell you a little silly story. This one will be grounded in reality about an old job I once had. And, first I'm going to do a long-winded, some would say. I would say long-winded, I guess. Long... I don't know what the long tail is. And so then I'm okay. Well, that's what the introduction is going to be, an attempt, one, for me to understand the long tail. I think it was Chris Anderson that coined that term. And then I'm going to try to make that into a metaphor about the podcast. But I'll give you the TLDL, too long, don't listen version right now. And that's kind of it. That's would be, I guess I could have called it the TLDL podcast. It's too long. TLDR, too long, don't really listen, but kind of listen, so you're distracted, so you get put to sleep. But I don't know I don't know if that's like an ampersand. No, what's not an ampersand? It's where those letters, where it says, okay, that spells out a word. And it's like, not any word I know about. But that's what the podcast does. I try to take your mind off. So I try to distract you. Using silly stories, a little bit of something familiar, similar to humor. And again, these are perfectly acceptable. You say, well, I'm not sure if I'm laughing with Scooter or at him. More chuckling, because he's saying something he's trying to be coherent, but it's a bit incoherent. And that's an acceptable. Anywhere else, you'd probably be shamed for that. At this podcast, it's an acceptable dynamic. And it's acceptable to fall asleep in the middle of the sentence. It's acceptable to say, I can feel him. He's trying to go for a point. Is he going to talk about the long tail? Because that could be uninteresting. Interesting to see him. He can't even get through this trying to link interesting and uninteresting. So you can tune me out. You can chuckle. And this is a common refrain heard in the Sleep With Me podcast households. Honey, what was Scooter talking about last night? I heard you, I don't know, it was like a sleepy guffaw, more like a guffaw, a softer, without any of the German, more like a guffaw, like a French guffaw. How do the French say guffaw, dear? And I don't know. I think Scooter was talking. He may have been talking in French about lemonade. And I'm pretty sure he was talking about some sort of French lemonade he was going to invent. And he was going to serve it at the Secret History of the Doily book launch. Or he was talking about the Mad Hatter, but it could have been either one. I don't know. But man, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that could have been a dream too. I think I had a dream that Scooter was eating lemons and I said, Scooter. And then I fell asleep even when I said, oh, that's Scooter. So that's a common, anywhere else in the world, you'd say, I'm sorry, what was that? What was that last 4 sentences you said, ma'am? I'm going to need to bring someone in from the board, so I have a fourth party observer here again. Okay, who's this Scooter with the friend? Or, you might pay, they say, okay, let's talk about the symbolism. And the man was eating lemons. And you say, no, that he's not in my subconscious. That's Scooter. He's on the borders of, you don't understand, doctor. Well, I'm not a doctor, ma'am. I'm Scooter, still making a metaphor with out on the borders of consciousness and sensibility. There's a border town. It's not called Slumber Town because that's like, we're on the borders of that too. We're in between. Believe it or not, this podcast exists on the border of the border towns. This beautiful Venn diagram, like one of the nicer ones where there's lots of circles instead of 2 or 3. And that's really, I guess, we're going to have to discard the long tail because you want to talk about something that keeps people up at night. It's the subtext of Venn diagrams. That's also coming out. Gingerbread Press Books 2017. As long as the Secret History of the Doily launch goes good. I don't have, that's just a working title. The subtext of Venn diagrams, but, I'll definitely work on something flashier once they see, if I can sell any of these Secret History of the Doily. When people find out they say, well, there's no secret sort of history in this book. And I'd say, yes, but it comes with some lovely doilies and also, make your own. I stole it from a Publicato book or repurposed it, as we say here in the creative, whatever they call it. What do we call it when we're creative marketing? I don't know. Yes, it was Publicato. Now it's a doily making kit. And I just crossed that out. I say, doily making. It's a big doily. Kind of a close-up of a doily. So I say, hey, yeah, step across the room. And they say, well, it's not. I say, well, you cut it into a circle when you're done. That's part of the extra. See where I wrote that in steps 14A. But as I said, this podcast exists out there on the border. Well, in between, they say that was the only thing the border towns could agree on, that I wouldn't get any actual borders. But I've managed to cram myself in here in a very, comfortable, crammed space because there's a lot of air, the sky above me. I think I'm crammed in between 16 saloons, right, where all these borders meet. So it's got good because between all the walls, there's a nice humming white noise where all the music and chatter comes together. But yeah, so this podcast sits, between sleep and wake, between listening and not listening, between sense and sensibility. Between Jane Austen and Jane the Virgin and, Jane that I can't think, more Plain Jane. Yeah, that was the one I was looking for, Plain Jane. And, Mary Jane for some folks maybe. They say, man, now it all makes sense, Scoots. Tell it to me like it is. And I say, yeah, it's a border town, border of border towns. But the key border is, you say, well, I'll listen for a little while. I'll listen to Scooter's rambling instead of my own chattering or all those voices that are jockeying for attention. You just listen to me. But clearly, you don't need to take me super seriously because I'm stuffed here. You just picture a bunch of Western towns. If 16 Western towns could be all back, just picture a big circle and they're all like little pie pieces. And in the center of the pie is where all the borders of the towns meet. And you say, who designed these towns? I say that, your Trivial Pursuits, the family that invented Trivial Pursuit, they did these border towns because they said they liked the pie shape for some reason. But yeah, there's a little space right there in the middle for me. Right where all the borders meet, where there's no room to be shamed by Venn diagrams, like your brain will tell you, bet I'm supposed to, would've, could've, and where they cross over, that's you. True effort and no effort and you. Whatever, success, failure. Well, no, you're just on that side. Just your brain never used Venn diagram. It has a Venn diagram. I mean, I love Venn diagrams, but I think, come on. I mean, when are people? Could we get Can we get the super friends on this? Like, when was the last time Venn diagrams were used to say, "Hey, you're doing a pretty damn good job"? Because it's always a little spot. Like, I guess my Venn, if I was making it for you right now, I'd say, okay, here's a nice, what's your favorite color? Okay, that color, circle. That's doing your best. Here's a circle of the equal. What's your second favorite color? Okay, fuchsia, really? You really have a color vocabulary. What are you a Pantone person? But anyway, and then that circle is a damn good job. They're the same size circle, doing your best, damn good job. That's my Venn diagram for you. And, then for all those other parts, it's like bedtime. And, you know, the rest of you brain parts, please be quiet. And I don't know, you say attempts at a Venn diagram. I guess maybe this is why they're only used for their best, you know, if you're going to repurpose Venn diagrams for good, it's really complicated because it's like, no, you need scarcity for Venn diagrams. You know, you need these two hulking circles of shame, you know, and then in the little is the meek little, you know, human. And you say, that's you right in there where that overlap comes. Skill, persistence, chance of success. See that tiny dot? That's where that's the sweet, that's what you got to shoot for right there. But now at bedtime, I have the power of, I said, because I gave up waiting for the Super Friends, even though I only called them 4 minutes ago. And by the power, I just pushed all those Venn diagrams together and dropped a little Roy G. Biv powder so that they just became, I said, well, it's not just one circle. You say, what colors? I said, sleepy color. And this is kind of the example I was talking about before. You say, anytime you feel like drifting off, you can. And, if you want a recap of what we've kind of talked about, it won't make any more sense to say, well, he talked about French lemonade, which I still didn't get. And then he said he was going to talk about the long tail, but then he didn't. Then he got mad about Venn diagrams, but, marginally mad. Well, the other mad, he's, madness. Then he talked about something else. I can't remember. I think it was personal something. Then he talked about something else. I think he tried to redo his French lemonade. He talked about a dream about eating lemons, maybe. Misused the word metaphor 14 times. I noted that, but it didn't bother me either, even though my name is Johann Metaphor. I never metaphor I didn't like. And then he tried that joke. Then he talked about Venn diagrams again, but I couldn't, I guess, and I said, was that the long tail part? I said, and there's something, I think Trivial Pursuit. He played a game of Trivial Pursuit, I think, as the episode. And they say, well, no, honey, I don't think he's pretty aware. He doesn't want to be wouldn't that be a copyright violation? Well, you're right, dear. Maybe, I think he talked about Borderlands or that's Scooter. So ideally, if the podcast works for you, you'll have some reaction. I think that would be the ideal reaction. Something like that. You say something along the lines of mild appreciation, I guess. And during the day, I get a lot more than that. Thank you, all of you. But that's what I would do. I'd take your mind off stuff, distract you, be a little bit silly. I just sit here and talk. I'll be at your bedside. You only got to kind of listen to me. It's a bedtime story for grown-ups. I want to be here to carry you again through the deep, dark night, to take your mind off all that racing stuff. And like I said, I'm going to use the long, soothing tones, pointless meanders, nonsense to you. I'll attempt to make the nonsense within me sensible. And in doing so, it's kind of like, I don't know, like it's processing it through a nonsensometer, and then I'll say, I wish I knew the plot of nonsense because I could use that. And every once in a while I'll say something like, gosh, bagosh. But that's it. I'm glad you're here. It's a weird podcast, no doubt about it. Well-intentioned. I just wanted to help you fall asleep. So I'm glad you're here. Thank you for stopping by. It takes courage and to overcome the skepticism of this odd little show to make it this far. Ideally, you may be asleep. Some of you may not. I'm going to be here for another 40 minutes, giving it my all. And I'm not kidding either. But I'm going to give it my all so you don't have to. So that's it. Thanks for stopping by. I really hope I help you fall asleep. Thanks.
Hey, everybody, this is Scoots here in this part of the show where I say, hey, if you get a lot out of Sleep With Me, right? You listen to Sleep With Me 2 or more times a week. You listen to more than 2 episodes a week. I'd love it, if you go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. That's sleepwithmepodcast.com/PLUS right now and sign up to support the show. And then tomorrow when you're resting, you could set up the bonus content because this message is only for those people, right? those are people who already know you want to support the show. It's just getting you over that last thing to go to that website and sign up. I'm not here to convince anybody because, like another supporter said, hey, I get more than I give, right? So Susan said, feels good to support a talented, hardworking creator who generously shares his life experience, sense of humor, care, and compassion with his audience. I found great comfort and or happy distraction in so many episodes. And here's to many more years to Sleep With Me and Ray episodes. And it feels good because I know my support back makes a huge difference and I get a lot of value out of the podcast. And that is from Susan, right? So if you get a lot of value out of podcasts like Susan did, if you love Ray, Fearless Flyers, you want more, and you want the show to be around for you and for everybody else, right? And you want to empower the show back for what it does for you. Go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. That's sleepwithmepodcast.com/PLUS. But thank you so much, Susan, and everybody who supports the show, whether it's through Sleep With Me Plus, through referring people to the show, or sponsors. I appreciate it. It's Tuesday, January 12th, and so I'm going to look up the trends here. I didn't realize that I have been not using Tweetbot to its full potential. We're really going to have some fun in 2016 with Tweetbot because you can really dial down your trends to different places. What we're going to do, I got the trends, pictures taken. And just yesterday or the day before, I was pining. I think that's the correct word. I was pining to myself. And then there's like, people talk about psychic places and they talk about memories. And I guess I'm one of those people, I guess, I don't know if I'm an auditory learner because the teachers were talking and I don't know if I was learning or if I'm a visual learner. I'm more of a mistakes learner. But to go back to I have like this auditory thing, auditory geographic brain fusion, where if I listen to a piece of music or a podcast in a certain location, sometimes those become fused for me. And so I guess this will be some unwinding of the sweater here a little bit again, because I was listening. Maybe my daughter, of course, not me, is a big Taylor Swift fan. I guess I am too. I like Taylor Swift. And I hear, I did an episode about her trying to look into oh no, that was about Lorde. Sorry, Taylor. I did talk about her battle with trying to figure out the streaming music rights. I think I did that, but so I was listening to a little Taylor Swift. I said, well, let me listen to this. And I tried to get to the youngsters I hang with, the third graders. They, re-enrolled in third grade, by the way. Don't tell anybody. But I said, hey, check this out. This is a little, and then I remembered I had a couple psychic places tied to some songs. And we don't need to go down that road. Not important or anything. It's not filled with any. But it was those places where the hills of the city of Oakland, beautiful downtown Oakland, as Roman Mars says, and his tones are on the sweet side. He has dulcet tones, I think. Now, he's buttery. I think I described his tones as buttery. His are like a vibrating butter tone, still solid. What's the fourth state called again? You got air, water, and solid. And the other one's like, I think his is that vibrating of that of butter. So, with a little sugar, mix this sweet cream butter. But so when he says beautiful downtown Oakland, that's what I was thinking of. But this isn't in downtown Oakland. This is the hills of Oakland. So I said, let's take a little, and what was I doing in the hills of Oakland? And could I take to my listeners back to this place where these psychic memories were formed? And I honestly don't know if this might be one trip, might be two trips. I don't know if we'll even be able to work these trends into it, to be honest. So I hope you'll forgive me.
And I'll try to change this around the subject matter slightly, but this is pretty straight material. At some point in my life, not that long ago, I had a job working for one of the local counties here in the Department of Agriculture. And I was working for the department there that deals with invasive things. It was the agriculture and weights and measures were one combined department. And it was probably the greatest job I ever had, though I love my job right now and I love making this podcast. But this was that came along at the wrong, like if I was like 22 years old, it would have been the greatest job ever. And I don't know, I want to talk about my day at work, but I got to tell you how much awesome this job was. First of all, it was 4 10-hour days, maybe 10.5-hour days. I don't know. But so you always had Friday off. And your job was to search an area, and we'll get more into that, to make sure there's no invasive species there. More complicated than that, scientific method type stuff. And it was 95% of maybe 95. If a 10-hour day, I'd say 92% of the job, the work day was spent outside or driving. And despite my, penchant for temper flare-ups, I love driving and I love being in a moving vehicle. I love being outdoors. And the Bay Area and Oakland in particular is just a lovely, lovely place. And those of you that listen to the podcast might be like, you say, okay, Scoots, you work, and I'll only say this word once. Like my official job title was an insect trapper. And that sounds more heinous than it really was, especially the insect awareness groups or whatever. It was really more of a sampler. You're checking and taking a sampling to make sure there's no invasive species anywhere. But really, for the purposes of this episode, we'll say I was a stonefruit protector, or a stone fruit tree, or whatever, I don't know what the word is, even though I did the job, protector. Or you could even, go back, entire state, breadbasket of the world, the United States protector. Or you just say, I like stone fruit protector, stone fruit protector. Stone fruit projector. I think that was, what was that? Clint? What was that? I think he did a series called Stone Fruit Projector. Or maybe that was the guy that did Cremaster. That was his in the movies that did Stone Fruit Projector. 16 hours of stone, and I said, man, I don't even understand it. Me and imaginary David Lynch went. And I said, is there any cabaret singers in this? And then he said it out loud. He said, is there any cabaret singers in this? And then he left. And he said, I'm going to the cabaret. And I said, can I come with you? He said, no. He goes, just stay here. Fill me in on the stone fruits. So how did I get that job? Well, I had a neighbor who had that job who told me to apply for it. And this is how crazy I am. I really needed the job because I don't know if I had a job. Well, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, I needed the job. Yeah, for me, it paid incredibly well, even though I was in my 30s. I think I was 30. I don't know. I was 30, around 30 something. And for me, I've never been a high earner in my life. So we're talking big money for me. And I don't know what it paid. And for a lot of people, it would be big money. For a lot of people, it might not be. But it was a reasonably well-paid job. For me, it was really well-paid. I think it was like $16, $17 an hour, maybe. But I didn't have a job at the time. It paid okay. And my neighbor was like, you should apply for it. I just left. I know they have open positions. And then I said, it was in the laundry room. When you talk to an introvert, talking to introverts in the laundry room, just like on public transit, I think I was non-responsive, but my wheels did start to turn. And at the time, I was always looking for jobs that I could write during them or, be creative. And so I was like, well, maybe I should check this job out. Plus, I didn't have a job. So I was like, okay. Or maybe when he told me about it, I did have a job, but it didn't have benefits. I think maybe, but whatever. So I applied for the job. I never told him because he could have got me the job, I think. But I've got too many issues. So I didn't tell him. And I applied for the job. And then I had to take a test, or maybe a couple tests. And I kind of studied for him. I didn't tell him again until after I got the job. And you didn't need a science degree to get this job because it's a very entry-level job. But, oh, what a job this was. I don't want to out any people that worked there, but the two supervisors were wonderful, wonderful people. We'll make up names for them. Sherry and Millhouse were the two supervisors, and they were both the nicest people, especially Sherry. And so then I got the job, and I got trained by this guy. What's a fake name for him? I don't know. I don't want to. I guess a couple nice guys trained me. And so this job is basically, so you go into work, and it was a little bit like being a Stonefruit police officer / mailman. So our job is to protect the Stonefruit trees and sample them, to make sure that they can be at their healthiest. This is, say if anybody's using the scientific method now, it's going, it ended when I started talking. So we would go into work, and now each person, when you got the job and you got assigned a route, because the state of California is broken into 1 by 1 mile grids. I don't know. I guess I didn't ask a lot of questions. So I don't know if this is just the agriculture system has these grids, or this is a universal grid system. I don't have the answers. I'm sure our good buddy Eddie Snowden could get that. And then each of those grids is broken into a north quadrant, a south quadrant, an east quadrant, and a west quadrant. And there might even be, I don't know if there's 5 quadrants. There might be a center. There might be a C too. I don't know. It's been a little while since I protected it, officially, as a sanctioned Stonefruit protector. So you had a grid. And then in a 4-day period of the 4 work days, you were supposed to cover your entire grid. And each grid had some alternating things. So you were supposed to check within a 2-week period, you checked your entire grid to make sure not all the Stonefruit trees in your grid, but a representative sampling of the Stonefruit trees that were likely to have ripe fruit on them. Or if there weren't Stonefruit trees, another fruiting tree. But ideally, we're looking to protect all trees through the Stonefruit. I think that was Stonewall Jackson said that, protect all through the Stonefruit. So that was our job, so you had a grid. So each beginning of the week, you started at the beginning of the grid, and then by the end of the week, you're supposed to be done with your grid. And there was a set number of samplings, and you're supposed to relocate your sampling stuff, which were little paper things or glass things we would put in the tree. They would basically talk to the tree, hey, how's everything going up in here? And you say, how does that work? It says sprites, believe it or not. Eddie Snowden could tell you about that too, but sprites, little bit, we had paper sprites that lived in paper houses and sprites that lived in glass houses. And they would spend the days, just chit-chatting with trees. But they had a method, kind of like this podcast. They would chat with the tree. I guess like the Socratic method or the talk therapy method. They would talk to the trees. Maybe they say, well, this tree seems a little down. And then they would make a report. And then I would check the report, I'd say, okay, very structured system. They have it figured out. And so you would have a pickup truck, small bed pickup truck, and you'd have water because the sprites always need water. especially because the sprites that lived in the glass houses, they were water-based sprites. So believe it or not, they lived in these glass jugs. If you live in California, you may have seen these in a tree, glass jug in a tree that holds a Stonefruit sprite. It's that simple, scientists. And then the paper ones, but so you needed water, and you needed a decent amount to make sure. So usually you had a water tank in the bed of your pickup that was installed there. And then some smaller buckets to distribute and also to wash their houses, because the sprites, they could be particular about, they like a clean house. Who could blame them? There's Stonefruit trees. They got stone dropping, wind, dust. So we would wash their houses for them on a regular basis. We would build paper houses for the Stonefruit paper tree. Paper, Stonefruit, it's complicated. And again, I don't know the phylums of all this stuff, because somebody over there at the, biology thing doesn't believe. They say sprites don't have a phylum. And I say, you needed to be in a zoology, buddy. So you had, you had your water, you had your paper to build paper houses, to clean. You had little sprite food pellets. So you had everything you needed to get through your workday, all your work supplies. They had this cool 10-foot pole. Believe it or not, I've worked with a pole, a 10-foot pole. I can't even believe it myself. It seems like a dream now. And it had a hook so you could put the sprite houses up in the trees. And not kidding about any of this. Not kidding about most of this. The 10-foot pole they did have. So there was that part of it. And then, because there was this was a government-based job, there was an obscene amount of paperwork. But I think it was a necessity because, also scientists like paperwork, and people, sprite-based Stonefruit protectors, we do paperwork. If it protects the Stonefruit trees, on my honor as a Stonefruit protector. So you would have binders with the maps in them, and each grid had its own map, and then you had all the corresponding paperwork. And what the corresponding paperwork was, say you had a map of a 1-by-1 grid, and then on the edges of the map it had the next grids. Then after that map, you'd have all the possibilities of where Stonefruit trees might be, what Stonefruit trees. So you'd have little maps, and they say, well, on this part of the grid, with cross streets and such things, like near this fence or near this telephone pole is a nice apricot, as some say, and peaches. Now, those are the Stonefruit trees that are the most, they have the sweetest fruit. So, and then they are at the, towards the middle, late of the summer. So those are considered our super, super stone fruits, and not because of looks or sweetness, just because of, I don't know, the powers that declared, I serve, greater forces of the stone fruit. So I just follow in the traditions of my four protectors. So, let's see, so we had paperwork. So you had these binders. Usually I'd bring about 4 or 5 binders, and that would get me through a work day, maybe a day and a half. Then you had like a clipboard with more paper, so you could log all the paper, all the stops you were making. And a stop, we'll get into the specifics of the job soon, but a stop would involve, checking a Stonefruit tree, checking in with the sprites, and saying, hey, what's, seeing if they left any reports, maybe cleaning their houses, making sure their houses are in good order. Sometimes the wind would blow them out. Tree sprites, they can handle that, but you'd put their house back or house repair. And then since we're doing a sampling, at least I think it was every 6 weeks, it was every 4 to 6 weeks, you'd want to relocate to a new tree. Ideally chasing the ripening of the fruit. And now the downside of this job I need to talk about is that you're only employed from around Easter to Thanksgiving, and then you get laid off. which is probably the only reason that, and I didn't have a biology degree, and I couldn't quite live on what I was, so those are the only reasons I'm not still working there. Otherwise, I feel like this is the best job ever. I mean, outside with a 10-foot pole. And you say, well, what's it like working? When I say the sprites really don't, they're kind of like movie stars, so they don't really work with us. We work, and I don't like to say we work with the sprites, but almost like if they're talent and I'm not talent. So they, the talent stays separate. So I couldn't answer any sprite related questions like what are they like? What do they, other than, that, and I don't want to damage any sprite human relations by saying anything else. Okay, so you would have to relocate them every 4 to 6 weeks. Usually the paper house sprites, you'd rebuild a new house, ideally. And then the glass house sprites, you just wash them up a house, either their house or you'd have a clean house ready to go, set up their food and everything and put them in the tree. And sometimes you'd get to a tree or you'd get to a property and say, oh, I can't get to that tree, or that tree doesn't, needs fruit. To protect the stone fruit, we need fruit. And you would also start in citrus trees. Grapefruit trees are also good. They weren't a stone fruit, but the glass house sprites, they like the grape. They say, well, we're protectors. And I say, well, I love a grapefruit. Pomelo is something like an orange and a grapefruit. I never got an answer out of a sprite whether they consider that an orange or a grapefruit. But here in California, we're lucky. Oranges are usually in trees a lot of the year between early spring and fall. So that was a lot of like a bit of the background of the job, not any actual details, and a few, factually, so what was a work day like? Now, I don't want to, if this becomes a thing, like you want to hear more, we'll talk more, but I wanted to get back to the premise that I started with, which was these psychic memories of certain places, because I have, well, let me do a little more broad overview, okay? So the state was blocked off into one by one grids. Now, I guess after I left they decided to redo the grids, and move them 1 inch, which caused a hole, and then reorder the numbers. Say, holy bureaucracy. So that could create, luckily I wasn't there anymore. That would be dyslexics, and I still have dreams about this job. A lot about the paperwork and then about the beautiful hills of Oakland. So I had this grid, a portion of Oakland, not all of Oakland, but man, did I get lucky. Now, I had one of the more difficult things, just because I had a combination of parts of downtown Oakland, which would have low fruit trees, hard to park, lots of traffic. And then the Port of Oakland, which would have similar problems, not a lot of trees and stuff. And then I would go all the way into the high hills of Oakland. And if you're hearing this from around the country, you probably don't know about, the whole beauty of Oakland from the port all the way to the hills, and the diversity of Oakland, a place I love. So I hit the jackpot because I get to, over a 4-day span, tour all of that. Now, I didn't have all of Oakland. A couple other lovely people had some other parts of Oakland and their grids, but I had my little section, and it was the greatest. And I felt like a bit like, I was a Stonefruit mailman in some sense. I was just checking in with the Stonefruit, what are they called? Pixies? I forgot. Sprites, I believe. So I'll just give you a quick overview of my 4-day process. Usually on Monday, every Monday night, usually it started at the Port of Oakland, one of the big West Coast ports, where ships come in, big container ships, and there's port stuff. And there's no trees right on the port, but on properties close to the port there are. And there's a couple, the city of Oakland and the East Bay Parks District have been able to invest in a few lovely parks right by the port. So those were nice places. So I'd start there on Monday, and then I would go through West Oakland on the first half of Monday before lunch. And I would go through West Oakland and I'd go through the industrial section and then the residential section. And West Oakland's got this industrial residential mix, kind of where the port connects to it. And it has a bit of poverty there. But I always had, like I think like some people might be intimidated by that. But it was funny, like, whatever the activity was that I was running into, they called me the bugman. And so I would run into people that other people might find intimidating. And I'm not an introvert. I'm an introvert, but I don't know. Sometimes I can flourish, when I'm a bugman. I don't know, like I guess when I can inhabit a role is what it is. So people be like, what's up, Bugman? And I remember one guy sang me the Line Man song. And this is all running through West Oakland. And I'm hopping fences. I'm dodging dogs. I'm checking in with people. And then people be worried about me. They'd be like, what are you doing? This isn't. And I'd be like, don't worry, I'm the Bugman. I got it down. And I'd be waving, and I always, I was big with my window down. I usually wore shorts. So I had a great time in West Oakland. And I don't think West Oakland's been gentrified yet, but it was, and this was right when I got this job right during the presidential election, President Obama's first election. So I don't know how gentrified it is now. But so that would be my Monday morning. Up until about lunch, I'd be in West Oakland, maybe a little bit past lunch into like 1 or 2 p.m. Then I'd start to move through downtown Oakland at lunchtime usually. And that could be stressful and a bit of a handful, but just because, a downtown city, with the traffic and trying to find a spot to park and stuff like that. And then as my day would go on, I would be in some of the residential neighborhoods off of downtown Oakland. And normally my day would almost invariably end my Monday around the beautiful Lake Merritt. I think the oldest wildlife estuary, the first one in the United States, the Jewel of Oakland. Go see it. It's, it's this beautiful, I guess, estuary, man-made lake in the heart of Oakland. It's got a couple little districts around there. You can walk around the lake. You can sit at the lake. You probably heard episodes where I've talked about the Canadian geese, which I wish, I love the people of Canada, but it'd be great if you could take those geese back. But so usually I'd end my day, right at Lake Merritt, or right around there. So that'd be my Monday. And then my Tuesday morning, just hand off, start where I left off, somewhere near Lake Merritt. And I'd go through some of the more residential neighborhoods on the other side of Lake Merritt, right up to the border of the city of Berkeley. So I guess that would be northern Oakland at this point. And northwestern Oakland. And I'd be doing those things on the beginning of the day. And those are pretty, it's a pretty grid-like area. So that would take some time, and it was residential, so there'd be more trees, and there'd be more driving. And I guess there's probably a lot of grids there. I don't know. But still not in the hills of Oakland. By lunch, I'd still be on the border, like the Rockridge area of Oakland. I can't quite picture where I would end my day, but I think it would be close to starting to climb the hills of Oakland. And even people in the Bay Area, I think, don't know about these hills of Oakland. And, of course, the hills of the entire East Bay, which even after the residential areas go on to these lovely East Bay parks, which we somehow, I mean, not we, I guess the men and women who came before us who decided to preserve a lot of those hills just to have parkland. But day 3 would be, I don't know which I loved more. I guess in some sense, day 2 was like, it was just mostly residential. Like day 1 had Oakland, West Oakland, and the port. And, being called the bugman and going to places I probably shouldn't. And people saying, well, but then day 3 and then day 4, my work week, we're in these Oakland Hills. And even the Oakland Hills had a lot of different moods and styles and twists and turns. Like and I don't know how to describe it. I guess if you were looking at it through a Hollywood type perspective, there are parts of Oakland Hills that are literally like you would picture Bel Air and the Beverly Hills, with these just beautiful, beautiful homes and stuff that you could say was old money, and then some new modern homes that you could say it's new money, and then maybe a little bit down where you say, I don't know which is richer, Beverly Hills or Bel Air, but stuff where you say, well, that's way too expensive for, I'll never live there, but it's pretty nice. But then even above that, you get into this part of Oakland Hills that has this alpine feel where there's tons and tons of tall trees and these hilly, twisty roads. There's a road called Shepherd Canyon, and there's another one running through it called Skyline. And then at the top of these hills, they abut these beautiful parks like Redwood Regional Park, Wildcat Canyon Park, Chabot, Huckleberry Preserve, some lovely little parks. But when you get into the more, and I call it an alpine feel, that's just what I call it. You get into more houses where I guess people have been, like you'd say, at one point, these houses were probably pretty affordable because they're way, way up. And even though they're not far from downtown Oakland, some of them have billion-dollar views. But you say at some point these houses, because it takes forever, even though downtown Oakland's probably 4 miles away by road, it's probably like 30 minutes. And I don't know. I don't think I could do it justice, but you'd be driving through these hills and you'd feel like you're in the mountains. You'd have cypress trees and redwoods, and you'd go from, this tons of shade and the smell of thick trees. And I would be like fully on patrol, looking. And at that point, I had GPS, so that was really helpful. I think when I first started, I may have not had a GPS, which made it really hard. And some of the Oakland Hills didn't necessarily always correspond with that. But what an adventure, getting to see all these houses and see these different streets that I would have never had an opportunity to drive, and to be protecting the Stonefruit, of course. And it's strange to say, but somehow, you can only listen to so much AM radio and then FM radio. And so, I tried to figure out like an FM transmitter, because this was like a county pickup, so it just had the radio. They're not going to let, they're not looking to, let you get some luxury listening in. But so I listened to a lot of podcasts and a lot of my own music. And so, I'd have like, and when you're working a 10-hour day driving, you can never have enough audio, I guess, because this was years ago. So it was before there were some podcasts, but nothing like the selection now. I mean, can you imagine you have an entire catalog of Earwolf podcasts? I can't imagine working that job now. It's like I could catch up on all my podcasts, Radiotopia, Panoply. I mean, I could just work my way through it. You talk about maximum fun, make my job maximum fun. And it'd be, I could listen. So, I guess that's a little forlorn that, I guess I can't go back. And I guess I left that job really good. Was one of the few bridges that didn't burn down. I don't think, until now, because they say, what are you talking about with the And I say, yeah, the sprite houses, of course, were the Stonefruit protectors with our poles of protection, or well, house adjusting. And so basically, day 3, I would drive around. There was one other thing that I'm loath to talk about, but that is relatable when you think about mailmen and garbage men, especially. I wrote some short stories about this, but like that I learned is like, where do you go? Like, where do you go when you have to go? Because especially when you're a place like the Oakland Hills. Now, I think Oakland must have an ordinance. If you're getting construction done on your house, you have to have a porta potty. So once I had done the job for a while and had some close calls, I learned, to just, well, I guess I didn't learn to mark it on a map or anything, but I'd say, I think there's a porta potty around this block. And then at some point, of course, you would count on that being there, and then it would have been gone. So you would kind of plan those things around the beginning of your day, the lunch, and the end of your day. But even then, it would be difficult. Or if you're in a place like West Oakland, not a lot of businesses want you say, well, you're not a customer. And I say, I'll never be a customer now. And they say, okay. They say, okay, can I buy, how much, So that was one of the few job hazards. But it definitely gave me some empathy and stuff. But so day 3, I would go through the hills of Oakland, up these canyons, and I could take a nice lunch, and I could write, and it was a union job, so we had like 2 required 15-minute breaks and a half-hour lunch. But this job was a lot of work. Like, I would take those breaks, but that was really the only time, because you had to finish your thing. Like, the routes were laid out to be finished in 4 days. And they're supposed to take 4 days, and they would. And then you never knew, like, if you were relocating the sprite houses, and then you were like, especially if it was towards the end of the day, and they said, well, and then you suddenly couldn't find any fruiting trees, but you had taken their houses, and you say, well, you can't bring them back to the office. Sprites stay in Stonefruit trees, or, the closest thing they can. They don't stay in, so then you'd have to keep looking for a proper tree. And we were supervised and inspected. So it's like, if you can't just pretend, you could get caught, if you put it in a pine tree or something, that'd be it. And when I had this job, it was not a time to play around with jobs. This was when the economy was hurting. And this was just a dream job for me. Holy cow. I mean, I could have probably recorded 8,000 podcast episodes. I mean, they would have all been the same. But yeah, look at this. I'm getting one. And at some point, maybe I'll be able to drive those hills for you in person. But so day 3, I would spend the whole day driving through the hills and through the different flavors of the hills. And then as day 3 came to a close, there's this little 13, I think was the route. And I think the town, what was it called? Mountain Boulevard. I don't know what you think they had Montclair, maybe? Is that what they called it? And I guess like as a time portal to pass, when I first moved to the Bay Area, I actually worked some shifts in a juice bar, a coffee bar there, slinging. This was pre-Jamba, so I was slinging smoothies and wheatgrass and coffee up there. Forgot about that till just now. Wow. I can't believe I'd forgotten about that. So, yeah, I think that was called Montclair. And so that was like a nice little quaint town that had a Safeway. So that's where I'd usually start and have my lunch if I could, or if I needed to, because they had facilities. And if you need to buy like a cold water or something, that's another thing. You need a lot of water because you're working outside in the summer. And of course, sunscreen, audio content, ideally. But so I would like drive these things and I would listen to different stuff. And so just listen to these different songs just bring me right back to these different places. And even the different atmospheric things, like, because if you were there in the early morning and it was a foggy day, it'd be dark and foggy and misty and wet and almost like one of those crustacean periods. I think there's a more nuanced term for it, but you'd be there and like places with thick trees, they have the ground thick with old leaves. And you'd talk, you'd see people, you'd be like, hey, can you mind if I check your, I got a couple sprites here. Can I, because you'd ask the homeowners, hey, can I, I'm a protector of Stonefruit. I work for a Stonefruit Protection Council by order of the, sprites. I mean, usually I'd cloak it in more official terminology. So I spent that day. That was a really nice day. Then day 4 would kind of be, and I guess it was a bit like a metaphorical journey, but I don't know what do. But day 4, I would be coming down from the hills, and then, so after you got out of the what I call the alpine region, just because that's what I don't know, or the tree-filled region, you'd come back down, and then you'd be like day 4. At first, I'd spent a lot of time in the Bel Air type section. Very, very nice. And you'd even its own, I think, even incorporated city, Piedmont, which was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful homes. Very nice people. Some very nice parks. Could use a few more restrooms if I'm going to be honest. They even have like a little canyon with a little tennis facility. I think that's run by Oakland City Parks. And that was a cool spot to eat lunch. Usually, maybe there'd be a couple people playing tennis. So then you'd work your way back down out of the hills and through the section, which if you're familiar with Oakland, Park Boulevard would be where I'd kind of finish mine. And that would be abutting this, the next person's grids would be on the other side of Park Boulevard. And he would, I guess, cover that. I don't know if that's considered Southern Oakland. I've never heard anybody say Southern Oakland, but maybe East, maybe that's called East Oakland. And then sometimes if you were finished with your route a little early, you'd help someone else finish their route. So sometimes I'd get to go to Berkeley and finish up in the Berkeley Hills, or the area around Cal Berkeley. But it was what a wonderful, wonderful job. And yeah, it's protecting the Stonefruit from, I don't know, you're just working with the sprite. We didn't actually we were just like basically an early warning system because we had no authority or need. You just say, hey, check with sprites, check their paperwork, and say, okay, and then mark it in your paperwork. Make sure you're rotating trees to follow the ripening fruit and building up to the season of the stone fruits, which usually goes, let's see, I don't know what would be the first, but you'd get into plums and you'd go plums. I'm probably missing something, apricots, peaches, and then loquats. And then after that, you'd go into a persimmon maybe, and then a citrus. And, you had to be the most vigilant in the seasons of the, stone fruits. So, and loquat is like a stone-like fruit. There's a lot of them in California, and it's kind of tough to it's like a little tiny orange round fruit. But yeah, you go into plums, and there's different types of plums. And there's even something called ornamental plum, which really isn't, is real, but then you could move into your real plums and they would be ripe. I don't know what other stone. I apologize to the stone. Oh, nectarines. Those are another good one. Nectarines. But nectarines would be, you'd have to be really keep an eye on them because they could be pre-apricot or post-apricot. So, you just want to keep a close watch on that. So I think that's it for the I mean, feel free, but I don't know what questions you have. It was, because I can't, like I said, the most questions you have be about the sprites, which I can't answer. So I say, why sprites? And I say, again, I just was, if someone asked you to be, like a Knight of the Round Table, would you question the table? Or, they say, well, whose orders, and they say, Princess Daphne. They say, well, when am I going to talk to them? And they say, no, you're a Knight of the Round Table. And I say, well, I hope that you are able then. And they say, I'm sorry, what? And I guess they're like, yeah, say, wait, okay, so you want me to be a protector of Stonefruit and you're going to give me a paycheck? And they say, yeah, but you get laid off and it's, it's only, and you got to pay union. And they say, well, that's more money, Say, this is a tough time in our nation's history, job-wise. I'd be honored. And I got to wear I wore somewhat of a uniform. So I had a tan shirt on, but kind of like a park ranger with a little badge, not a badge, but something you put on the arm of your shirt. I don't know, a crest. And it said Department of Agriculture. And of course I had that pole. And, I got a lot of, pole action. And I would switch arms, so I didn't overdevelop one or the other. And you'd be putting these things up in the tree, and you had to be careful. And there was one time, this is when people say people are capable of some strange things or superhuman feats, and this might not seem superhuman to anybody, but I remember I was in West Oakland on the corner of the street, and I think I had parked across the street. So it was all sidewalk. It was this really nice plum tree, very, very tall though, and it had been trimmed a lot. And I remember it was these smaller round plums, not like the kind you'd eat, but maybe an ornamental one or maybe just like a baby. I don't know what to call it. So the sidewalk was covered with these little plums. But, you have to get the Sprite house. This was a glass house. And you got to get it somewhere where it can hang, somewhere where it get some airflow. And somewhere where it's not in the total sun or the total shade because the sprites don't like either one. And a branch, so because it's glass and this is an urban area, you don't want it falling on anyone. And so this particular tree only had this one spot and it was really, really high. So I'm on my tippy toes negotiating it. And just as I push it off the branch, it falls. And it falls 10 feet towards the sidewalk. And somehow I literally just, my hand left my brain, reached out and caught it. And caught it in the perfect way that it just popped into my hand. And honestly, I don't know what happened. And I don't have any coordination whatsoever. And I mean, if you've been listening, you say, well, sprites. And I say, you're exactly right. That's what I thought too. Power of sprites. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope the sprites have carried you off into dreamland. And I'll be talking to you soon. I'll do some thank yous here. Everybody's time to talk about tonight's sponsor, Helix. I'm going to tuck you in with my Helix message here, because that's where I tuck myself in every single night. Now, ideally, my sweet, sweet Helix just feet behind me, listening. Sometimes I got to be away from you. But when I'm gone, I miss you. What do I miss about you? I feel like you're really there to meet my needs when I'm sleeping so I can have the support I need, the comfort I need. It was like a perfect match. I felt like it was I just took this little quiz, I answered a couple questions, and suddenly in my life I had you. My dusk lux, you fit my feel preferences. I sleep on my side. I sleep on my stomach. I like to sleep cool. I don't like it stuffy. And you showed up, apparently you were shipped straight to my door free of charge. And that's where we began our journey together so many years ago. And the cool thing is you're my Helix, right? But there's a lot of people listening. I don't know if you know this, but there's other people listening to our conversation right now. I mean, how many episodes have you heard me record? 1,200 episodes. But not everybody sleeps like I do. They have different feel preferences. They may like a firmer mattress, a softer mattress. They may sleep on their back. They may just sleep on their stomach. They might want to choose a mattress with their partner. And I'm so glad to know all they need to do is go to helixsleep.com/sleep and take the quiz there. And they'll be able to pick a mattress that works for them.
What a great thing. People used to have to go to stores and have people watch them, then either figure out delivery or people traipsing around. You have somebody trying to talk you into mattress instead of just taking a quiz and saying, this is what I like. What's going to fit my needs? And they have options to choose from, right? I picked the Helix Dusk Luxe, but now there's the Helix Dusk and the Helix Elite as well. So if you're listening to this conversation right now between me, for my mattress, but for you too, I want you to get the best night's sleep you can. And I know your mattress is a big part of that. So go ahead and take that quiz. It's helixsleep.com/sleep. And right now, go to helixsleep.com/sleep for 20% off site-wide. That's helixsleep.com/sleep for 20% off site-wide. helixsleep.com/sleep. Thanks, everybody.